In this set of PowerPoint slides, we're going to talk about how certain combinations of personality traits can lead an individual to become a very dominant and manipulative person. This occurs in all areas of life, but certainly in work organizations as well. And the three traits we're going to specifically talk about are called the dark triad. And the three traits are Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. I'm going to talk about each one of these traits separately in different PowerPoint presentations. In this one, we're just going to give you an overview of what we call dark triad people are all about. Dark triad individuals are those that possess all three of these traits in very high measure. Recently, some other researchers have proposed that there should be another trait added to this mix, the trait of sadism. And so they believe there's actually a dark tetrad of traits rather than just a dark triad of traits. And there may be something to this. But until this becomes more widely accepted in the field of personality research, I'm going to just stick to the dark triad traits. But I just want you to be aware that in recent years, there's now talk about a fourth dark, sinister trait. And so for the time being, we're going to stick with the three traits of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Machiavellianism is the tendency to be manipulative in your interpersonal relationships. You're not terribly concerned with conventional morality, and you are willing to manipulate people to get whatever you need or want. If you're high in Machiavellianism, you're not necessarily an unpleasant person. People that are what we call high max often are successful because they get people to go along with them rather than because they make people go along with them. They can be very charming. If you're high in narcissism, of course, you have an unrealistically high sense of self-esteem. You think you're just great, and you can become enraged when other people don't share that opinion of you. And psychopaths, for want of a better way to say it, it's a little too simplistic to say that they just don't have a conscience. They have very shallow emotional responses. They don't empathize at all with other people. The three of these together are a bad combination. So, what are dark triad characters actually like? In the world of fiction, we certainly have people like James Bond, somebody who is extremely narcissistic and overconfident, someone who isn't terribly concerned with rules and moral values, and someone who's willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. The character of House in the TV series is a classic dark triad individual. And yes, Darth Vader is a dark triad character as well. If we're looking at real life people, there are many that there's a consensus are good examples of dark triad characters. Apple founder Steve Jobs, serial killer Ted Bundy. By the way, there's a video clip of Ted Bundy on this module of the course. I recommend you take a look at it. The emphasis is on him being a psychopath in this video, but you can see the other dark triad tendencies at work as well. Bernie Madoff, the famous con man that swindled a great many people out of their life savings. Cult leaders like Charles Manson and Jim Jones of Jonestown fame. And of course, President Donald Trump, who is proud of being a dark triad character. And you're going to see some more Trump clips later on when we talk about the other personality traits. So, dark triad characters are immoral and manipulative, but they're also usually charming and intelligent as well. And it's very easy to be taken in by them because when you first meet them, they come across as interesting, charming people that you would like to get to know. But they tend to have certain traits in common. Here is a sampling of the traits that dark triad people often have in common with each other. They're selfish, they're competitive, they always want to be the best. There's a sense of entitlement, a sense that they deserve things that other people just aren't entitled to. They have a sense of superiority, they tend to look down at other people. They always think they're the smartest, best person in the room. They like to be in charge, they're very dominant. They can have a very quick and easy social skill of kind of charming people. They might have nice senses of humor, but they have very callous social attitudes, and they often are impulsive. They often have very low self-control. Their urges are so powerful that they just can't resist them. Consequently, they lie a lot. They'll do whatever it takes to get ahead. And they'll threaten or seduce or charm. Whatever strategy they need is what they'll do to get ahead. And they're equally manipulative with strangers and with people they supposedly love and care about. But of course, if you're a dark triad individual, really, you don't love or care too much about anybody other than yourself. Some of you with certain types of religious upbringings might be familiar with the concept of the 7 deadly sins. These are considered to be sort of the basic character flaws that humans are most prone to: anger, pride, greed, gluttony, sloth, envy, and lust. All the good ones. Well, it turns out that dark triad personality traits are better predictors of committing the 7 deadly sins than one's actual moral beliefs and foundations. This is based on an interesting study where they measured how sinful people were by the vice and virtues scale, and then they measured their dark triad personality traits as well as their moral foundations, measured by something called the Moral Foundations Questionnaire. And it turns out knowing where they stood on the dark triad traits was a better predictor of committing the 7 deadly sins than knowing what their moral values were. So dark triad personality traits are generally undesirable things, but can they help you get ahead in business? And the answer to this seems to be, unfortunately, yes, at least some of the time. A 15-year longitudinal study found that individuals who were high in psychopathy and narcissism get to the top of their organizational hierarchies more often and had higher levels of financial achievement than people who were not quite so much of a psychopath or a narcissist. And another study estimated that if you looked at the people on the corporate boards of large corporations, that the base rate for how much of a psychopath these people are is 3 times higher than it is in the general population. Similarly, a study of 793 early career executives in Germany found that high Machiavellianism predicted leadership position and job satisfaction, as well as high narcissism predicting salary levels. So yes, dark triad personality traits can help you get ahead, but studies show that dark triad individuals are good at getting ahead. But once they get in a position of power, their inability to get along with other people and their tendency to take unnecessary risks causes them to sort of derail and implode. So it seems like the dark triad personality traits are good at helping you get into positions of leadership, but not very good at helping you stay there once you've achieved this position of power. And while this course isn't really about romantic relationships or interpersonal relationships outside of organizations, you probably have already guessed that it's not a good thing to get involved in a close personal relationship, romantic or otherwise, with the dark triad individual. Dark Triad individuals prefer short-term to long-term romantic relationships. And studies done cross-culturally indicate that Dark Triad individuals have a long trail of unhappy relationships throughout their entire lives. Their romantic relationships usually don't end very well.